Hello there, and welcome to the 100 Acre Wool Knitting Podcast. My name is Bella, and I come to you from Los Angeles, California. And this is a podcast where I like to show you and talk to you about all the things that I've been making recently, and that is mostly usually having to do with knitting or the fiber arts, and also sometimes some sewing thrown in there. So this week it's going to be all about knitting. I have a lot of knitting to show you, and I have also a finished object. So we'll get to that in a minute. But first, if you are new around here, you can also find me on Instagram or Ravelry as 100 Acre Wool. And timestamps and links to everything that I talk about today will be in the description below. So if you would like to jump to one particular section, you can do that. Or if you would like more information on anything that I discussed today, all of that information is down below. So first, I guess I'll just talk to you guys about my finished object for this week, which is my first ranunculus. I am actually wearing it right now. Here it is. I am so in love with how it turned out. I'm so happy with it. This was a pretty quick knit for me, but it took a while just in the sense that I got to the arms and I didn't know what to do. I was very conflicted on whether I should keep knitting or just make it a short sleeve ranunculus. I decided to keep knitting, and I actually just kind of followed the pattern for how I did the arms with a little bit of adjustment, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I'm so happy with overall how it came out. It fits me perfectly. I love how it fits. It's got a lot of positive ease, which is how it's written, how it's supposed to be worn. I know that Midori Hirose, that's the designer's name, by the way, if you are not aware of this pattern. I think most knitters are, but if you don't know this pattern, it's by Midori Hirose. And she designed it to be one size fits all, or it just comes in one size. And I know she has a few adjustments if you have a larger bust or if you want to make it a little bit larger. I know she has some adjustments for that, but it's kind of a one size garment, so it's supposed to have lots of positive ease here. So I basically did everything the pattern said for the body portion. So all of this beautiful yoke work here, really cool stitches that I learned that are really easy to do, really simple, and she lays it out very well in the pattern. She tells you exactly how to do it. She also has some videos that you can watch if you're not quite sure, what she's saying, which actually I did that, and it was really helpful. So yeah, some really cool stitch patterns and some eyelets here all the way around. And then for the body portion, like I said, I just knit it as the pattern stated. So it's kind of a cropped design. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. It's pretty cropped, and it's also much wider than me, so there's a lot of positive ease there, which I really like. It's so comfortable to wear, and especially with the yarn that I used for this, it's really comfortable. And then the arms, I did decide to go with long sleeves, or actually these are 3/4 lengths. I did decide to do that for this pattern, for this version of the sweater. I just wanted to see what her original design looked like. I wanted to see, when she designed it, what she was envisioning. And I think it's so cute. I really love it. And I do want to make another one of these because of just how adorably it came out and how it's so comfortable. And it's also a really easy design to just chuck on, whether you're, going outside, going for shopping, going on a grocery run, walking around the house, doing whatever. It's just a great piece to just wear all the time, and it's really beautiful. I mean, this yoke part up here is just my favorite. I think it's so cool. And for the arms, I did follow the pattern to a T, except I did make them a little bit longer. I think my gauge was pretty exact when I did a gauge swatch. I did knit a gauge swatch before starting on this pattern, before knitting it, and my gauge came out correctly, I think. I had to go up a needle size, and I'm also using DK weight for this, so that may have affected the gauge. I'm not really sure. But anyways, I think the whole thing may have turned out a tiny bit smaller than it actually should have. Even though there is still a lot of positive ease here, I think it actually may have been, or it may have supposed to have been a bit bigger, if that makes sense. Because in the photos, after looking at like the photos of her examples on Ravelry and in the pattern, I think the arms are supposed to start a bit further down, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of a drop shoulder. It's not actually, but it kind of looks like a drop shoulder in the sense that, this is not my armpit. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that I had to knit the actual arm a little bit longer in order for it to lay as a 3/4 length sleeve on me. So that's what I did. I ended up making them a few inches longer, I think 2 inches longer for each arm. And then she has you do a really cute detail at the bottom when you're almost done with the arms and you're going to bind off. She has you make this really cute little pouch. I don't really know how to say it, but it's kind of, I don't know if I'll be able to show you. I'll put some pictures here as well of the garment that I'm wearing it, and you can maybe see more of the details that I'm talking about. But this cute little detail here, I just really loved that. And then you end with an I-cord bind off, and it's quite a thick I-cord, so it really gives some structure to the bottom of these. Since this garment is knit in a quite loose gauge, and especially since it originally calls for fingering weight yarn. Again, this is DK weight, so quite a bit thicker. So having that, extra kind of thickness and structure at the bottom is really helpful for the end of sleeves. And yeah, so the yarn, if you haven't seen me talk about this, the yarn is Expression Fiber Arts. It is the Alpaca Silk DK base. And this colorway specifically is called French Bulldog, I believe. I actually purchased this yarn quite a few years ago. I actually purchased it when I was kind of just starting to really seriously get into knitting. And, Expression Fiber Arts, I kind of learned about them really early on and tried some of their yarn. And this was one of the yarns that I had purchased, really quite a while ago, a couple years ago. And it had just been languishing in my stash for quite a while, and I kind of rediscovered that I had this yarn and decided to make this out of it. I had purchased it with a different project in mind originally, but I don't know what happened. I just didn't want to do that one anymore. I don't know. That happens. You buy something, or you buy a yarn with one thing envisioned, and then it ends up being something else. But I'm really happy that I used this yarn for this project because it just makes it so breathable and drapey. This yarn is very, very drapey. So I think, this being kind of an oversized garment and it's supposed to move, and I think it's a great yarn pattern combo if you're thinking about knitting this. And also, when I was picking out the yarn for this project, I didn't want to use fingering weight, just because it's a thin yarn and you use size US 10 needles on this, which I think is 6mm if I'm not mistaken. So that would just be a really, really loose gauge, and I'm not actually sure that it would be appropriate to wear with nothing underneath. And I definitely wanted this to be, I could just chuck it on with nothing else, or, that it would be appropriate to wear on its own. So that was another reason why I wanted to choose the DK. And I just like more structure in my fabrics in general. So yeah, I really love how it came out. So I think I'm probably going to make more of these. Maybe not immediately because I have so many other projects going on, but eventually. I know I talked about this before, but Knitting with Cat Hair, another knitting podcast on YouTube, she talked about her ranunculuses and how she's making one for every season. So I thought that was a really fun idea, and I'll probably be doing that or something like that, because it's just such a cute pattern, and you could totally, change it and make it exactly how you want. I could have stopped here at the arm separation point, and I could have made a really cute, short sleeve version, or you can make it a little bit longer so it's not cropped, and maybe then that would be a good winter version. So yeah, really, really fun, really great pattern. I had a lot of fun with this one. So next, let's get on to my next project. I have been continuing on my Yell cardigan, which I don't think I've talked about on the podcast for a little while. There have been many projects. I'm not really a monogamous knitter anymore. I used to be, but anyways, that's okay. So I've been continuing on my yellow cardigan, and I will say this week I got to working with my 9-inch circulars, and I'm not hating it. I'm so happy I'm not hating it. So I'm still working on the body as well. This is one of the arms that I started on just to play with it. I wanted to see how the 9-inch circulars would work. I've never used 9-inch circular needles, so that's kind of the backstory here. This is my first time knitting with them for a sleeve. So yeah, I'll get into that in a second. But let's talk about the body portion first. So I am still working on the main body. It is taking quite a while. This is just so much fabric and so much color work. I mean, it's completely color work, so obviously it's going to take a while just because of that. And maybe I'm a little bit of a slow knitter, at least for color work. But I've been making some good progress with it. So what I've done since I last showed this to you is basically all of this main body motif here. That's kind of the two gray colors. So I showed you, this bottom half portion finished, but now I've been working on the two gray colors just by themselves, which this is most of the garment. It's going to be a lot of the same kind of a motif repeated, but that's okay. It is fun. And I do like that there aren't a crazy amount of catching floats. There are a few rows in this motif that you have to, do some stitches and catch your floats. Otherwise, there would be way too much space in between the color changes. But other than that, it's totally fun and it's totally okay. And I may have said this before, but I'm actually using different colors for the yarn that's in this main motif section. I chose all different colors for the entire piece, for all of this bottom section here as well, but also for the main stuff, I chose slightly different colors. I am using Jamieson & Smith and Jamieson's of Shetland wool, which Jamieson & Smith is what the original pattern calls for you to use, and Jamieson's of Shetland is just a really, really similar yarn weight. It's essentially the same yarn in my opinion. It feels the same. It works up the same. I highly recommend you can play around with using both of them interchangeably, and yeah, they're basically the same. Anyways, this motif is quite fun to knit, and I haven't been able to memorize the pattern because it is kind of a long repeat. I think I'm almost done with one repeat right now, so I think one repeat is this length and then you just keep going up. So it is kind of a lot of rows to memorize, so I don't know if that'll happen. So I have to, keep looking at the pattern and making sure that I'm doing the right thing. And it's just a lot of stitches every single row. I mean, my goodness. This is also an oversized garment and it's all color work, but I know I'm going to love it when it's finished and it's going to be worth the wait and worth the work. I definitely think that it's going to be good. And if you are not new to me and this channel, then you probably know that I have quite a few long-term projects in the works. So recently I've really been trying to tell myself that it's okay that these projects are taking a long time, and I hope you guys don't get bored of me showing the same things, for weeks and weeks on end, that they're just taking a long time to finish one piece or one garment. But I think that'll make them even more special and even greater when they're finished. It's like a work of art that you've spent so much time and so much effort building and making and knitting. I think those long-term projects should definitely also have a space in our making journey. And I also, of course, have a love for, quick knits that are pretty simple, that, TV knitting, and it just feels good when you get it done, to have a finished object, and it's really exciting. But I definitely think that these types of long-term projects should also be in there. Just to have, crazy, cool, memorable, pass it down to your children type of pieces, that are kind of mementos. So yeah, that's how the body's coming along for now. And the arm, let's get back to the arm. So I am doing quite a few changes with the pattern for these arms. I noticed when looking at the pattern, you work the body bottom up. So you're knitting, you start at the bottom, cast on there, and then you're knitting up to the top. You do some decreasing for the sleeves and whatnot, you know what I'm saying. But then I was noticing the arms are supposed to be worked top down. Why? I don't know. That seemed kind of strange to me, and I personally don't really want that for my garment. I would rather the stitches all be facing the same way, because what would end up happening is if you knit the body bottom up and then you knit the arms top down, the stitches will be flip-flopped basically. The V's of the stitches will be facing one way and then the other way. So I just want them to look the same and uniform. So that's the first change that I'm doing, is I'm knitting the sleeves also bottom up. So I started on the cuff here at the bottom, and yeah, knitting up the same motif that I did for the body section there. And then another change that I'm doing is I am not doing the decreases that the arms call for. Marie Wallin has you decrease the arms as you go down, so it would be somewhat fitted, it would be larger at the upper arm section, and then towards your wrist it would get smaller. But I wanted sort of a, what would you call that? Maybe a boot cut, but for your arm, where it's like a straight cut. Maybe that's what it's called, a straight cut. I'm kind of actually copying Taylor Owen here. She also made the Yell cardigan. She knit the Yell cardigan, I believe last year she made it, and I followed her whole process through that. I think hers is gorgeous, the colors that she chose, and it's just beautiful, beautiful. If you haven't seen her videos on her Yell cardigan and you're curious about this pattern or you've knit it before, I highly recommend seeing hers as well. But anyways, she did also the kind of bell sleeve, or didn't do the decreases, and I thought that that came out really nicely in her version, because I think she was going for kind of a, I don't know, 70s vibe, maybe like, I don't have the word for it, but more of a stylish kind of a sleeve. Yeah, anyways, hopefully that makes sense. So that's also what I'm doing here. So I'm going to be keeping the same stitch count all the way up the arm. And then for when I get to where I would need to join it to the body, I haven't figured out what I'm going to do for that part. I might end up doing maybe some sort of a mattress stitch to connect the two. I'm not sure. We'll get to that when we get to that. Don't need to worry about it anytime soon, because this is the first arm, and as you can see, I haven't done very much on it. So it's going to be a little while longer. But yeah, so this is my first time using 9-inch circulars, and it's been really fun, actually. I was pleasantly surprised with these. I was really thinking that I would struggle a lot. So normally when I'm using regular size needles, I feel like I'm putting a lot of kind of weight on the needles and using them a lot for leverage to get the right, tension for my knitting. So I was really scared about these, that there's really nothing to hold on to because they're so small. And the actual needle portion is only this long. So where my fingers are now to the tip right there, I think that's probably like 1.5 inches. Very, very small. So that was kind of scary. I didn't know if I would like them. I didn't actually think I would. And no, actually they are really good and really easy to knit with. The only thing that I'm getting right now is I'm kind of holding the fabric instead of where I would have been holding the needles before. I'm kind of holding the fabric. And since this fabric is kind of, it's really woolly and it's got texture to it, I'm getting a little bit of like chafing on my finger. So I think I just need to hold it slightly differently. But no, these are really, really good needles. And I am probably going to get obsessed with them and want to get them in all the different sizes, because I think these will be very good for sleeve knitting or even sock knitting, or, any sort of a small circumference small circumference projects. The reason that I had purchased these to begin with was I'm normally a magic loop girl. When it's small circumference like this, I would usually just use my regular needles and do magic loop. But I was noticing that with my color work specifically, I was having some tension issues with magic loop specifically, I think because of the needle changes, and you might actually get this problem, or I did actually get this problem as well when I would use my TPNs. So I figured circulars, mini circulars may help that problem, and for this project I definitely wanted my tension to be completely even throughout. I really wanted the fabric to be nice. So yeah, I'm not having any issues with this now since it is a circle and there's no needle changing and you just knit around and around and around. It's great and there's no tension issues. So yeah, I'm probably going to want to get more circular needles like this, little 9 inches. So I highly recommend those. If you haven't used 9-inch circulars before and you were or are a magic loop person like me, give them a try, give them a go. I do think that you may be pleasantly surprised. So let's get into my next project. The next thing I have to show you this week is my Mer Sweater that I have been working on for a little while now. I mean, you've seen this project if you've followed my podcast. Probably you've seen this project because I did make this for my mom a few months ago. So this is a pattern that I designed myself and is actually in the test knitting phase, just about to be done. It's pretty much done the test knitting phase, and it will be released very soon. I am so excited about that. I'm going to be releasing this on June 25th. So if you are curious about this pattern, if you've been following my process with it, then it will be released on Ravelry on June 25th. That's a Friday. So make sure to look out for that. I will also post updates on this release on Instagram if you would like to follow closer and know exactly when it's going live. You can also follow me on Instagram for that. But anyways, I've been working on my version of the Mer Sweater this week, and I finished the bottom portion of the body. So you can see at the top here, this is the top portion. The whole garment is worked top down, so it's a turtleneck, and then it's also long sleeve. I haven't done the sleeves yet, obviously, but it's worked top down, so you start with the turtleneck up here, and there's also different lengths of this in the pattern if you want a little shorter one. Many of my testers did decide to do the shorter version of the turtleneck, and they came out so beautifully, so that's also an option. And then it's raglan sleeves, so you increase with these beautiful cables along the sides, and then you go and work the body. The body is also fitted, so the whole garment is actually fitted, the arms and the body and everything, so it kind of hugs you in all the right places. And then you get to the bottom. Goodness, I have so much yarn. So this is the body portion section here. So it starts around the waist is where these cables start, and then they kind of increase out towards your hips there. And it's a mixture of small and large cables, and I just think it's so nice and so pretty. And this yarn is also a mixture of alpaca and mohair, which is just, oh, it's so soft. I love it, love it. It is quite warm for June. I think we're in June now. It is very, very warm for that, but I know in the winter I'm going to get so much use out of this. It's just going to be so cozy and warm. The mohair really does a lot with warmth. I was quite surprised about that. This is one of my first times using mohair in my knitting, and it's really, really warm. I was quite surprised. Anyways, I'm also getting started on the arms over here, so I've been working a little bit on that. So those are also worked top down. You just kind of pick up stitches and then you keep working down. And then there's also cables at the bottom of the sleeves. I will probably put a picture here so you can see what I'm talking about. This is my mom's version. I made that for her originally. This was kind of my test piece, the first piece that I made, the original, whatever you want to call it. So that's what it's going to look like at the end. So the sleeves at the bottom have the same cables as this. So this has just been such a fun process. It's just been really, really great to work with the test knitters. They were all so sweet and so nice and so helpful. Thank you so much if you were a test knitter. Thank you so much for joining in and being a part of this. It was really, really great. I know some people haven't quite finished yet. I mean, we're not to the release point. I gave them up to the release date to finish it. But some people have finished theirs, and they just look so beautiful. I'm so happy how they turned out. And the testers seemed to really like the pattern and said it was written well. So that's really, really amazing to hear, especially, with this being my first ever pattern release. It's really exciting. So yeah, I'm really hoping that you guys like this pattern, and if you do decide to purchase it, I really hope you enjoy it. So I think that's everything that I have to show you and talk to you about today. Thank you so, so much for watching and for taking a little time out of your day to hear about what I'm making, talk about all the knitting, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. So I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.